Hey guys, come crochet with me. We are going to make this repeatable mini hearts design using the overlay mosaic crochet technique. So the front is going to have hearts and the back is going to be stripes. You're going to need two colors of yarn that contrast well. So I've got my dark teal and a gold. You're going to use a yarn, whatever weight you want, as long as they're matching. And then your hook has to match the yarn. So I use a worsted weight yarn and a 5mm hook. If you use a thinner yarn, you can use a smaller hook size. You're definitely going to need scissors because we cut the yarn at the end of every row with this technique. And you may need stitch markers. I didn't use any in this video because I just did a single repeat wide and a single repeat tall. If you are doing this over and over and over and over, you might need a stitch marker to tell you where you're counting from again. And if you're doing it over and over and over at the top, you might want to put stitch markers to let you know, again, where you're counting from. And that's what we're going to need today. Let's crochet. Okay, so here I am with my yarn. I've got a dark and a light. They are worsted weight, like I said, which means I'm using a 5mm hook. My scissors will be handy. Stitch marker, not so much for me. And I'm going to tell you how the pattern is written. You're going to use the pattern mostly, and the video is going to support you. We're going to start with a slip knot. If you don't know how to do a slip knot, head to one of my other videos for a tutorial. And you can either chain across or you can do a foundation single crochet. If you are chaining, you're going to do multiples of 16 plus 3. So I'm doing a single repeat, which means I just have 19, the 16 plus 3. If you were doing two repeats, you would have 16 plus 16 plus 3. Always have to keep that plus 3. The third chain in that little bundle is the turning chain. So once we come back and single crochet along, 16 plus 3 turns into 16 plus 2 single crochets. That turning chain doesn't turn into a single crochet, which means we will have 18 single crochets for a single repeat wide. I actually prefer to do a foundation single crochet. So I am going to get rid of this one. And when you're doing foundation single crochet, you still need multiples of 16 plus 2 foundation single crochets because we don't have the turning chain. So if I'm doing a single repeat like this, once again, I'm still just going to have 18 single crochets. They're just the foundation version, which is where I'm going into that first chain. I'm going into that first loop. That counts as the chain at the bottom. And then I go through 2 loops. That's the single crochet. So this is the chain at the bottom. We go in. We pull through 1 loop, that counts as the chain at the bottom, and then 2 loops, that's the single crochet at top. So we're always going to go into that chain space, pull up a loop, do 1 for the chain at the bottom, and then 2 for the single crochet. That's how foundation single crochet works. And when we do the foundation single crochet, we don't need a turning chain. So that's why it's 1 less than if you were just doing regular chains. If you're doing multiples, you can still do the same counting where you're going to do 16 plus 16 plus 16 plus 16 plus 2. We always have to keep 2. So that's how it works. This foundation single crochet I prefer because you have a cut end on the front and the back, just like all the other rows will have. And because it's easier for me to add an extra stitch in if I've forgotten, other than like pulling your whole chain and single crochet thing apart, to add an extra chain in at the middle of your chaining and then single crocheting, right? Like the count is just easier this way for me, but some people find it fiddly, so you do not have to. You can do it whichever way you prefer. Just count them up because counting is the hardest thing you can do in mosaic crochet. I know you think you know how to count, but actually you'll find you probably don't. Of course, I'm half teasing because we do know how to count. It's just tricky. That's like one of the trickiest parts of this technique. I have now finished my 18 foundation single crochets. That is 16 in the middle, joining stitch, end stitch. To cut it off, I pull another loop through, cut it off, and then that last loop that I've done, I just pull it all the way through. It turns into a knot. And we are ready to switch colors. Now, when I get my contrasting color, I always start with the knot again. You don't have to, people do different versions, but this is how I do. I start with a slip knot, and then I go into the 2 loops. It's just like a normal single crochet where you're going under the 2 loops and you pull up your yarn and you make a single crochet. This is technically called a standing single crochet because it wasn't attached to anything. In the design, if you read the key, you'll know that usually when it says single crochet, it means back loop only. So that's what all these other stitches are. Back loop, single crochet. Instead of going under the V or the 2 loops, we leave that front loop open so that when we are doing the next teal row, we possibly can come down and grab that loop. So right now we are doing all the way across. You can count, you probably should count, especially because we think we know how to count when we're doing this technique and then we find out we really don't. You should count just to make sure you have the right number of stitches, but if you don't want to count, you just single crochet all the way across, and then when you get to the end, you make sure you do like a strong final stitch. That's what I call an end stitch. So we did the joining stitch, which was really a standing single crochet, our 16 back loop single crochets, and now we are at end stitch, which means I'm going under the V again. I'm going under 2 loops and I'm just doing a regular single crochet, and I pull my loop through to make a little knot at the end of the row, and we are ready to move on again. We're now on row 2 using our main color. The foundation is 0, that gold is row 1, so this is row 2. We start with our joining stitch. It goes under the V, under 2 loops again. And then we have the asterisk telling us that the repeated section, we're going to start with a dropped double crochet. We're not using the gold loops at all. We're going to use the front loop, and it has to line up straight. You don't want to go one back or one forward. You have to go straight down to use the front loop, and we're going to do a double crochet. There's nothing really special about the double crochet except for that it's in the loop at the bottom. And then we are going to skip those gold loops and move on to the next ones. And the next stitch is a single crochet. We use the back loop only, and we actually have 5 of them. So we'll go across here. These are all using the back loop only. And then when we get to the next double crochet, once again, it has to be lined up. So there should be 5 front loops that are not being used. We're not using any of these gold loops. And then we're going to drop it down, make sure it's straight. We use the front loop only for this dropped double crochet. And of course at the back, you can see these loops are skipped. Don't use them. We're going to move on to the next yellow stitch, back loop for the single crochets. And in the written pattern, you will see now that we have brackets. The brackets are showing us another type of repeat. The asterisks are saying that no matter how many times you repeat this pattern, we have a joining stitch and an end stitch, and then everything in the middle gets repeated. The brackets are saying that for this section, we're going to do 1 double crochet and then 3 single crochets. And this section is then going to be repeated twice. So we go 1 and then 3, just like if you just read the brackets, and then it starts over 1 and then 3. If you need a more in-depth tutorial on how to read brackets, you can head to my website. I will drop a link in the comments. They are complicated for some people, so don't feel bad if it's weird. And now we are at the end stitch again. Make sure it's lining up. 2 loops at the end to really lock everything down together before we make our knot, cut our yarn. If you were doing repeats, of course, you wouldn't be done your row yet. So you might have to pause the video and rewind, or just learn how to read the pattern, whatever is best for you. Of course, we are always going to start with our joining stitch. They're all going to line up along here under both loops. And then the next one, we can't have anything other than a single crochet. We can't do a dropped double crochet if there's a dropped double crochet in the way. So we know that that one's going to be a single crochet. Then we have 1 double crochet and 3 single crochets. After these single crochets, we are going to get those brackets again. And it says in the brackets, double crochet 1, single crochet 1. So we'll do 1 double crochet and then 1 single crochet. And then the brackets, after the brackets, it says times 2. So we're going to do the brackets again. 1 double crochet, 1 single crochet. After the brackets are fully done, we just have 1 double crochet and 6 single crochets to get to the end of our repeat. If you're doing more than 1 repeat, you will actually have 7 single crochets, because you would have your 6 single crochets from the end of the row, and then you'd go back to the beginning of the asterisk, put in another single crochet. So it would actually be a chunk of 7. I just want to make sure that that part is clear too. If you get to the end of the repeats and you're done your pattern, like me, I'm done my little square, I'm going to have 6 single crochet and then an end stitch. So you have to see how the design gets cut in order to make it like a seamless design that just goes on and on and on. Sometimes you will end with half a heart, so that if you were starting at the beginning of the row, you'd have the other half of the heart. That's it for row 3. we can now move on to our main color again, row 4. You will see also there's like great big line between row 2 and row 3, because if you were repeating for height, you would do your 0 row, your foundation row, your row 1 with the gold, and then row 2 with the main color again. And you would not be repeating those. You would repeat from row 3. So now we are doing row 4. We're doing our drop double crochet in the front there. 1 double crochet, then 3 single crochets. Make sure you don't use the loops that are supposed to be hiding behind a drop double crochet. Otherwise your stitches are going to start leaning, you're going to get miscounted. So that's part of the trick, counting and getting your stitches in the right place, which sounds simple to say, but it really can be tricky for people. If you're struggling with it, just keep trying. I promise you're not the only person that struggles, right? So just keep trying, and hopefully the video helps. If not, check out some other videos, right? We got lots of options. Check out another teacher. Maybe you like other teachers. Maybe I'm not doing it right for you. That's okay. I just want you to make fun things. So if it's not me that helps you get there, find someone else, right? All right, I made it to the end of row 4. We are cutting the yarn again. Hopefully the video, you can always slow it down. If you're like, whoa, I didn't even catch all that. You're supposed to be following the written pattern and following the video, pausing, repeating, right? So we've got our main color at the bottom, foundation. Our main color is still at the bottom, both sides, right? We know that dark for me is the main color. It doesn't have to be dark for you. It could be the lighter color, just as long as you know what you're doing and it's lining everything up. On to row 5. For row 5, again, we're using an odd number, row 5, which means we're using the contrasting color, starting with our joining stitch. Then we're right into brackets. 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet, times 2, so we do it again. 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet. Outside of the brackets, we're going to have a single crochet 7 here, and this is basically the same 7 that we had interrupted previously, because the hearts are very repeated. You can sort of see that happening throughout the written pattern, where it's like, oh, this is 7 again. And then after the 7, we will have a drop double crochet. It's going to definitely not be on top of something that already has a drop double crochet, so that'll help you if you think you know how to count and then you're like, wait, this isn't lining up. You have to know that drop double crochets can't be on top of a different drop double crochet. They can't cover it up, right? And we have 3 single crochets, 1 more drop double crochet in there, and then we will have our end stitch. If you have more in your repeats, of course, you're going to be repeating. And you can see that we finally got a heart. I can see a full heart. And we cut off our yarn and move on to the next. With these small squares, it feels like I am constantly cutting and putting the scissors down, picking them up, putting them down. With a big project, you wouldn't feel quite that much. Here we are, row 6, using our main color, starting with the joining stitch. Then we have 1 double crochet. It's lining up with all these double crochets. There's actually quite a long stretch there. And we have 3 single crochets. These 3 go right across the top of one of our hearts. And we can see that because we haven't covered up the gold, we actually get a finished heart there. Isn't that cute? That's actually our first finished. I said it was last time, but it actually wasn't quite finished because the gold was going all over the place. Now we have 1 more double crochet and then 5 single crochets. Hopefully you are reading the pattern in front of you, or you know how to read the chart. We'll see. We have 1 double, single, and then double. This is allowing that dropped from the gold to be seen. We're kind of bracketing around it. And then we have 3 singles before we get to our end stitch. Under both loops, locking it all down, cutting, of course. We're always cutting all the time. And we are kind of getting somewhere. I mean, it's really small right now, but it's really cute already. And we're ready to move on to row 7. We've got our contrasting color. After we start with our joining stitch, of course, then we will have 5 single crochets. This goes across the top of the heart again. And we will know we're done our 5 when we have the opportunity to do a dropped. Once we get past the heart, there will be 1 drop single crochet right against the wall. Then we have 3 more single crochets. 5 and 3 happens a lot in here because of the size of the hearts. And we've got brackets again telling us do one double, one single, and then one double, one single, you know. You have to just repeat it. This one is part of the heart. I mean, everything is part of the heart, right? This whole thing is just hearts. That's why I call it many hearts, because there is just many hearts. And then we are going to have one more double and 2 single crochets, which is part of 7, right? Because we had 5 from the beginning, 2 now. So if you're repeating, you're going to have 7. That's kind of like a flat section. Repeating this is going to have more hearts that don't look like they're being cut. Like there's no lines in between them. They're just kind of never ending. And of course we have our end stitch, cutting our yarn, moving on. And I have been cutting my tails just a bit long. I usually cut them a bit shorter. I leave the first ones really long in case I make a mistake with my count. But then going forward, I usually do keep them a bit shorter. I don't know, I kind of got carried away with the video here, but that's how life goes. Starting with our joining stitch, using our main color on row 8. We're going to do 4 single crochets. Oh yeah, see that dark line finally is getting interrupted. All the way across. 1 drop double crochet, 1 single crochet, and then brackets telling us to do 1 double crochet here with 3 singles, and then it's times 2, so we have to do that twice. So we're going to do another drop double crochet right between those golden double crochets, and 3 single crochets goes along the top of the heart. We have another double, drop down there, 1 more single. If you were joining it to the front, it would be actually 5, right? You'd have 5 singles. And I was just pointing at the back to remind you that there is a stitch back there that you don't use, right? Every time you do a drop, you're skipping the ones behind. I don't know how new you are to this technique, so I was just trying to make sure we cover all the bases. The back is striped, the front is hearts. That's how it goes. Row 9, using the contrasting color again. It's a pretty small little repeat that we've got going on here. So those rows are going back quick. Joining stitch, then we'll have 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. Then we have brackets telling us to do 1 double and 1 single. So we finish the bracket and then start over again because it has the times 2. So we have 1 double, 1 single. And then another double, and we will have 7 single crochets to finish this little stretch. I always wonder, should I count out loud? Maybe you're counting, and if you hear too many numbers, you get all confused. 1 more double crochet, and that's the end of row 9. We're going to put our end stitch and cut it all off. Some people like to put a stitch marker saying, you know, they've done 10 rows or whatever. I don't usually do stitch markers unless I'm doing a repeat. So then I would put a repeat stitch marker on the side to tell me once I was at like row 3 again. You can do one here if you want to count row 10. It's a special number, right? It's easier instead of counting them all, but we're going to start with a double crochet. It's in the brackets, so we know it's going to be at least, you know, 2 repeats, but it actually could have a bigger number. If you were doing a different pattern, sometimes these brackets have more than just 2 repeats. This design is too small. There's not enough room for more than 2 repeats. So we've got 1 double crochet, 3 singles, and then 1 double crochet, 3 singles. And then we get another double crochet and only 5 singles. This double crochet that we're doing next is just before the yellow double crochet, they kind of neighbors, and then a single above the yellow because you can't cover the yellow, and an end stitch. And that's the end of the row again. I told you they're fast. These rows are very fast. Cutting it off, moving on. We're using our contrasting color again, row 11. Of course, we start with a slip knot and our joining stitch right under both loops. Then we're going to do one single crochet. We know it has to be because there's a double crochet in the way, so it has to be single, then one double. Then we've got our big long stretch of 7 singles. I kind of like it when it's a long stretch. It's easier to keep track of in the pattern, but maybe it's too boring. I don't know. Do you find that boring? Do we find crochet boring? It's our hobby. Is it also a boring hobby? Never. Then we'll have 1 double crochet and 3 single crochets. My little tails tend to have a mind of their own. They get in the way sometimes. And then we have a double, single, double. If you were repeating, you could have put that in brackets because the beginning of this row we have another single. So it would be double, single, but we couldn't put brackets here because it's being cut in half. And finish off our row. Back to our main color, starting with our slip knot and a joining stitch right under the loops, nice and secure. And then we'll have 2 single crochets because this heart is cut in half. So we just need to, it would be 3 if we included the one at the end of the row, but cutting in half weird here. 2 single crochets, then 1 double. Then we're going to have 5 single crochets. And then the double is going to be right before you got that gold one, so you can use that as like a landmark. And we have double, single, and double, and then 3 singles. Ending with 1 more double single right in between there, lined up nice. And our end stitch, unless you're repeating, of course. If you're repeating, I don't know, are you like pausing the video and watching it again, or is once enough? Let me know. I really would like to know. It'll help me make the next videos better if I know how we're using these videos. You know how that works? Row 13 is got 2 sets of brackets in it, but we can handle it. We start with our joining stitch, and then the first set of brackets says single crochet 3, double crochet 1 times 2. So we just do 3 single crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Then our dropped double, and then we just start to the beginning of the brackets again, and it says 3 single crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and then a double. So that finishes this set of brackets, and then we're moved on to another set of brackets, and this set of brackets says single and double times 2. So we're just going to go single, double, and then we'll do it again, single, double. And now we will finish off this row with 4 single crochets. If you were adding it to the single crochets at the beginning, this is our chunk of 7 that's being split in half again. And we will have our end stitch, of course. Let me cut it off. Here we go. Row 14, back to using our main color, starting with our joining stitch. We are very close to the end of this design because there's only 16 rows repeated. We have 2 single crochets to start with, and then we will have a double crochet, making sure it lines up with the other dark double crochet. 1 single, a double again, and then 3 singles. And actually you'll notice this bracket says times 3. Earlier I thought that we didn't, but I couldn't remember. I don't actually memorize my patterns. So this bracket is double and then 3 singles times 3. So we're going to do it again, double and then 3 singles, but we're not done yet. We're going to do it one more time, so that way there's 3 repeats of those brackets. So we have 1 more double with the 3 singles. See how that works? I hope that is clear as mud. And that's the end of the row, which is like, I mean, it goes real fast when it's so short. End stitch to finish it off. How do you like how the design is showing up so far? Are we happy with those little hearts? You haven't been missing any stitches? Everything looking good? You could stop right now if you wanted to. You don't have to keep repeating it forever and ever. But if you're ready, we're going to go to 15, our contrasting colors, starting with the joining stitch. We've got brackets. Again, it's times 3. You'd think that I should know it's in there twice, but here we go. Single crochet 1, double crochet 1. That's the first iteration. Then we do it again. Single crochet 1, double crochet 1. That's the second time. So you might need stitch markers if you're having a hard time counting to 3, which sounds silly, but honestly, sometimes our brains just need a little help. So that's 3 times we finish those little brackets. And now we're going to do 7. That's our biggest stretch of single crochet that we do repeatedly. 7 single crochets all the way to almost to that gold. You'll see like the top of a heart. We don't want to wreck that one. But once we're past the heart, we can drop it down. And then we'll have 2 more single crochets and our end stitch. Under both loops, finish off the single crochet, pull an extra loop, cut it, and pull it right through. There we go. Now that we are on row 16, we should be getting the hang of this by now. Maybe. It depends how many videos you've already tried, how many teachers you've already tried, right? So we're going to start with 2 single crochets and then a drop down in between those little hearts. You can see this heart's almost finished here. 3 single crochets along the top so that we can actually see the heart. 1 more. Then we'll have 1 double crochet and 5 single crochets, which is the bottom of a heart, which maybe you can tell by now. I'm not sure. Some people's brains catch on to repeated patterns more easily than other brains. And then we have brackets, which are just saying do 1 double and then 1 single, then do it again. So we got repeating 1 double, those little tails, I tell you, 1 single, 1 double, and 1 single. Some people actually crochet over their tails when they get near the end here. They pull those tails back and they crochet over them. I don't like that, so I don't do it, but the tails seem to want to do it. Cut it off. Ooh, this is getting exciting. We are so close to the end. Row 17, using our contrasting color. If you're doing 1 repeat like me, then this is the last time we will use the gold. You can do more repeats, of course. You can do 1.5 repeats. I mean, you can do as many as you want. But for me, this will be the last time I use the gold. So we're going to start with our joining stitch and then 7 single crochets across. We're going to cover the top of that heart and then drop our double crochet on the other side of it. There it is. Then we have 3 single crochets. And we got brackets again. We're going to do double single, double single. So you can see it's going to be kind of surrounding the blue post. Double single, and then the second repeat is double single. Sorry, I said it really too many times, but I hope you know what I'm doing here. And we're going to end this row with another double crochet. And then the joining stitch, sorry, end stitch, the end of the row. Tie it all off. And the gold for me, we're done. I'm not using the gold again. All done gold. Whoop, whoop. And if we're all done gold, that means that this is also our last row on the teal. So main color, we're going to do joining stitch. Then we're going to do 1 double crochet. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. This one's a hard one to line up. I know you can do it though. Then we have 5 single crochets. And this might not be the end of you if you've got lots of repeats going on, but I like getting to the end of things because then I can check it off my list. We've got 1 more double and then a single. And then we got brackets again, just times 2. So we're going to do 1 double, 3 singles, then we repeat it. So we got 1 double and 3 singles. Then we have our end stitch at the end, and that's it. This is the repeat is done. So if you've done more repeats wide, obviously it's going to take you a lot longer. And if you want to repeat again, you're going to start at row 3. So the next contrasting color row would be row 3, and you go up over and over and over. That's where the stitch markers come in handy. You can see we kind of cut hearts in half on all the sides. That's what keeps it from being like a boxy design. It's very seamless. And you can tell that the bottom, the foundation, is a little thicker. So that thicker foundation row counts as 0. And then all of the main colors are all going to be even, 2, 4, 6, 8. You can see this heart is kind of lining up with the heart at the top. So row 2 is actually repeated. Row 2 and row 18 are exactly the same. That is why we are not repeating row 2, because it's the exact same stitches. So you only need to do it once. You just do row 2 at the beginning, and then from now on you'll be doing row 18, which looks exactly the same as row 2. And you can repeat as many times as you want. You can rewind the video, you can slow down the video. When you're ready, you're probably going to want to trim your tails. Obviously the first one was a little bit crazy. I usually do that on purpose. And then I don't actually trim my tails all the time, because usually I'm better at keeping them uniform and quite short. You don't want them to be too short, because then they would like unravel. And it also depends on what you plan to do with this. Is this a scarf? Then you should have maybe had longer tails, right? You'd have a nice strong fringe. Is this going to be hidden in an envelope border? Then you probably don't need them to be that long, but you also don't need them to be that uniform if they're just hidden anyways. What material are you using? Cotton, acrylic, wool? We know that wool is going to felt. So these little ends, they'll actually get stuck together and they will be more secure than if you're using a slippery acrylic. So with acrylic yarn, I do suggest slightly longer ends, because once they start slipping, you can retighten them, but once they're out, like that's really hard. And yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really have to be perfect for my case here, because I'm just sort of have maybe a cup cozy, not a cozy. You put a cup on top of it. Mug rug. There we go. Anyway, the back is kind of cute too. You could have a mug rug looks like that, but I like the hearts. If you do fancy stitches, you can do some sort of repeatable, it'll like cover things up at the back differently. Other designs, when you have longer sections of double crochet on the front, you'll get flaps on the back, flaps that you can actually pull apart. There is not enough double crochets in this design that are beside each other to create a flap, so it's actually quite stuck together. That is the end of our walkthrough here. Please connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and show me your little project.